Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the former world champion Terran in the red. It's Micro Jackson, ByuN, up against his longtime rival. And another world champion, the Executioner, the Zerg in the blue. We have Rogue in a best of 9 Terran versus Zerg showdown. The grand finals of Enki's epic series. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button or maybe even subscribe. Let me go to the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? 1,775 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better than the first couple of lanes on realizing ByuN has gone not for 1, but 2 command centers first. But still, you can't get in because we're on Celestial Enclave. And there's no way for ground units except workers to slip by. And the employee entrance, I'm sure, will be well guarded. But Rogue, not one to shy away from a much more macro-oriented game himself. Will already have his 3rd hatchery in production. Now, important to note, the little pocket base back there, you pay for that safety and security. Only 5 mineral patches and a single gas geyser. So, a nice little boost to your income early on. But obviously the bases outside are more lucrative, which I expect ByuN to take advantage of when he's done building every single thing you could before actual units. Double engineering bay at the back, 3rd command center. Did the Zerglings spot it? It's kind of implied. It's ByuN. At this point, these two have played for longer than... No, you can't get in. Those slight minerals right there allow workers to get out and in. Well, it really depends on your perspective, but every other unit is turned away. It's something to do with mineral walk and space collision trickery. So, we've seen a few probes slip their way in there and do some probe-based shenanigans, but thankfully, right, no Protoss here today. Will the Protoss please speak up? Trick question. Queens. Guarding the ramp as the 4th hatchery for Rogue, not to be outdone, is already in production. The Hellions lighting it up just a bit. Double Evo chamber at the back, not going to be too far behind that of ByuN, but we've got the full macro game to start. Absolutely no holds barred and barely any units built. A few queens. The drone waiting to be stretched into an Evo chamber for a temporary wall in case the Hellions get a little spicy. But I think ByuN is content with just slowing down the creep slightly and mildly inconveniencing the queens. Which is, you know, most of their life, though. Is he going to try it? No, just darting around this. Of course, there's a few Marines coming across. ByuN moving out with the classic 4 Hellion, 5 Marine timing attack. I do wonder if that was just in case there was an Overlord. So the Overlord usually hanging out at the Pervert Pillar. So far, literally no units have died. 5 minutes in. This isn't BGH, nor co-op, but instead, 2 of the best players in StarCraft 2 history who know each other so well and are very comfortable with playing. I've seen them play hour-and-a-half-long best of 3s. So they love playing StarCraft, or at least they're good at it. And hopefully there's some overlap on that department in general. You really hope, but believe it or not, ByuN is gonna go for a whole bunch of Marines and medevacs. He's got 2-2 on the way at 6 minutes. Rogue already has his lair completing on the other side. 1-1 upgrades, about 60 seconds behind. The Hellbats are marching out in front, but there's not even medevacs yet. They just popped out of the starport, but trooping across so far. Rogue thinking about a counterattack, but maybe cut off some of the reinforcements. There is no wall at the natural. In fact, ByuN is just abandoning... it looked like he was going to abandon the base, but Rogue realizes that's mostly SCVs. The Marines doing their best, and back at home, there's already some Banelings. We explode into action, and on top of the Marines, and many of the Marines are going to be left behind. They'll expect some of us in the wreck. The Zerglings are cleaned up, just like the Marines and Hellbats on the other side, and who got the better end of the story? 9 SCVs dead. Just trading out Lings and Banes is a win for Rogue. And now, Mutas especially before the Spire is done. I'm not the least bit surprised to see this. He's managed to get 4 bases of gas, mining almost 1,000 a minute. He's not quite mining all of it yet. Well, 3.5 bases of gas. We mentioned that back base. But the amount of mutas is going to be a lot to contend with for ByuN, who just lost a chunk of his Marines, already has a bruised medevac, and was battled back and battered into his base. Yeah, such great words. Changeling, hey, you want a piece of meat? Changeling was clearly suspicious the way it was walking up. 8 mutas in production, the Marine still holding the foreground. And I wonder if ByuN is suspecting this. He doesn't have any missile turrets. He's building a few Widow Mines, but those are always scattered in for extra flavor. Infestation Pit is on the way, so Rogue not going to be tied to just the Mutalisk, which is quite a great muta risk overall, but instead potentially a hive behind it. 66 SCVs and counting for ByuN, but Rogue is already on 79 drones and going on 5 hatcheries. Looking for the wraparound. Slurps up the Marines, but the mutas are on the chase. And things are about to get a lot more complicated for ByuN, as Rogue has taken to the skies and has enough Lings and Banes to wipe out the ground. The mutas will flap right by, and there's absolutely no abandoned ship! Oh, flee for your life! I don't know why he lifted the command center. Oh no! It's a disaster! Oh, he's still got command centers lifted! Oh, this is one of the oldest and most devastating mistakes at every level of StarCraft 2. He lifted his command centers accidentally. A couple of them were producing, so they couldn't lift. It was almost a stop on his entire economy. But, thankfully for ByuN, it will not be as devastating as it could be. Unfortunately, we don't have the income tab or battle report today, as the players didn't load up the right mod, I don't think. But just know that ByuN's income drastic go down. For a solid 30 seconds, SCVs wandering around trying to find somewhere to mine from for kind of an own goal there out of ByuN. Now, Rogue has started his hive. The muta count at 10, which is enough to be dangerous, and not enough to be a liability. That money number, in my opinion, so humble and modest as well, as many smart people in the comments tell me, is right around 15. 15 to 20 is enough, especially with flyer attack upgrades to one-shot medevacs and Widow Mines, without being such a huge percentage of your army, that those same medevacs and Widow Mines in the right place can cut it down easily. So, Rogue looking for that mid-tier number, while still teching up at 84 drones, which is a very solid economy without getting too drastic. And ByuN gonna have a little bit less as the Banelings roll in. And a whole bunch of SCVs sent to the units lost tab. 33 dead. And counting. The mutas looking to intercept, potentially. Sneaking into the back base. 2 missile turrets to zone him out. Will take down 1 easily. 3 upgrades have finished for ByuN. He's got a bunch of Marines, a bunch of medevacs, and a few mines scattered in. The M&M is an absolute classic. But at this rate, his economy shattered. He may have 1 shot. 1 opportunity, and it appears he's failed to capture it. Rogue just rolled over the front half of the army and the back half, realizing that maybe intercepting the mutas is all it can hope for. And oh my god! Oh, sweet mother of mercy. The mutas looking the wrong way for about half a second, and now half of them are looking at nothing at all. That is the usual life of mutas. Dramatic until it ends very quickly, as just a few Marines are all it takes to slice him out of the sky. But Rogue, gonna fill it in with more Zerglings. He's got an Ultralisk cavern on the way. Though I don't think he started adrenal glands. Did Shin transfer his lack of adrenal glands allergies over? As some more Zerglings got down. Adrenal glands kind of important for someone who has 131 Zerglings. I would say a 40% attack speed boost would be pretty helpful. But, you know, I'm no professional. I just play one on the internet. ByuN with 125 army supply. He's been bruised, but not yet broken. The economy has still stayed at a high enough level to build this near 200 supply army. He's about to have 3-3 done, but Rogue is closing in. The Banelings rolling through the creep, and the Terran army getting rolled with ease. But as soon as the creep recedes and the Terrans back off, The Muta's still looking for something, but they haven't been the thorn in the side I think they need to be in order to really undercut this momentum. The Ultralisk Chitinous plating is on the way, but not yet done. It is a 3 upgrade advantage for the Bio Army right now, and Rogue is getting pushed back towards his own bases. ByuN stepping onto the creep. The Medivacs still have energy for now. Another wave of Banelings. 3 Ultras in production. The Zerglings now closing in. The Whittle Mines being drawn out, but some huge hits thin out the Banelings. There's a couple more at the back. Another big slam. The Muta's joining in. And not too many Marauders out in front. Rogue will back off and refill, but ByuN managed to get a double drop over to the bottom right side, and the hatchery itself is vulnerable. That 3 upgrade advantage is paying absolute dividends right now. Trying to chase down with the Mutas, but the army swinging over to the left. The Ultras are about to pop out, but they're going to be paperless for a while longer. Down the center, the main brunt of ByuN's army in autumn colors, but he target fires the Banelings, and there's no Banelings left, and the Zerglings are obliterated by the Whittle Mines, and the paperless on the front lines will now be cut down in turn. The Terran army scything through everything. ByuN's target priority on point, and Rogue losing control of the situation. He needs the armor. He needs the Banelings together, and he simply doesn't have it. The double drop keeping Rogue busy, and he just lost 4 Ultras before they got their plating. And now ByuN has evened up the supply counts, but Rogue has not lost a base, and he's only lost a few drones. So his economy is still massive, just like his units, and just like your mother. But Ultralisk speed is on the way. Adrenal glands does not exist. And for someone who's already thrown away 300 Zerglings and has dozens more both in production and on the field, that is becoming an increasingly large mistake. +3 Carapace is about to finish for Rogue. It's now completed. The Ultras have their upgrades. Speed is closing in. The Zergling counterattack still very dangerous. The Whittle Mines have taken more than their fair share of the Lings throughout the field. And so far, ByuN has been leveraging that Bio Army, his specialty, with those upgrades so ridiculously well. But he was missing a key upgrade too. He didn't have the drilling claws to make the Whittle Mines burrow faster and maintain their cloak. And that'll probably encourage Rogue to build some Overseers, which is, you know, something he doesn't need any encouragement to do. But the counterattack. The thing is, especially without the adrenal glands, the Bio Army with any upgrade advantage can take out an inordinate amount of Zerglings. Banelings come in again. 70 SCVs have paid the price so far. But ByuN, with 134 army supply on the field, or above it, or flying right now towards Rogue's base. He has a couple spore crawlers on the perimeter. The Overlord spotted it, and ByuN redirects his efforts. The rocks will be taken down at an awkward pathing here. The main bio ball through the center. A whole bunch of the fungal finally comes out. The infestor's added in. Adrenal gland has begun. He realized he might not have had the resources and just assumed he had it, but now it might be too little and too late. Zerglings got into the main base of ByuN. But the brunt of the bio is here yet again. Battering through the front, but the Ultras from absolutely everywhere. The Infestors, a deadly threat. And some of the Medivacs may go down. The Ultras eviscerating most of the army. Rogue, more Ultras, more Infestors, more Zerglings in production. As he refills yet again. The bio army drops out. The Overlord convention will be rudely interrupted. The Infestors, not quite enough energy for Fungal. And those few seconds will matter so much right now. He needs 2 with 74. No! The Infestors get popped at the last moment. And ByuN dropping the base more than a Skrillex album right now as he picks up and he gets out. But he'll drop it again and again until morale improves or Rogue taps out of the game. Adrenal gland's still not done, but the momentum has completely shifted towards Micro Jackson right now. The minefield has recharged again and again, and finally the Overseers will join the field. But a dozen Ultras have been taken down. And a dozen more might not be enough to solve the problem. Supplies dipping on either side. The economy's being pummeled into oblivion. A hatchery finally goes down in the bottom right corner, leaving Rogue with very little mining. The Queens were forced to be the anti-air yet again. I don't know if Rogue remembers he has a Spire, and I don't know if he has the resources with which to use it. Quite an exchange. But Rogue clearly getting the worst end of things. With the lack of adrenal glands, the mistimed engagements. The infestors. I don't think they were too little, but I might argue they were too late. He needed the infestors with the first set of ultras. And now, he's living on a prayer. He needs those burrowed festers in order to find the sort of fight, because ByuN is entirely based on momentum. He does not have a Ghost Academy. He's just now adding in a few Liberators. He floated his main command center in order to have something of an economy by going out towards the front. He doesn't have so many orbitals, he can just be scanning left, right, and center. But, he's still gonna throw them out there. And the zoning missile turrets, in fact, he preempted. He knows. The threat of the infestors is an existential one here. ByuN knows exactly. Wait. Rogue forgot he had a Spire. Wait, you built another one? You already have one! It's a game that's been so hectic. Even pro players, maybe especially pro players, this happens to. Rogue completely forgot he went mutas and is building another Spire next to his first one. But I almost guarantee that he wasn't looking for more than a quarter second in order to figure out what was happening there. The Zergling's gonna get a few more SCVs, but the army supply is so high right now for ByuN. And I don't know, even a couple incredible fungals will be enough to turn it around. He needed the object permanence to the fungals are about as good as they get, but not good enough, as Rogue cleaves through an army and taps out of the game because he can win a battle, but he can no longer win the war. It just didn't come together. What a brawl. That happens so often with these two. Well, ByuN especially. Where we're just chilling, we're building up, and it's fighting time. And we just keep trading blows until someone keels over. And whether it takes 2 minutes or 25, it doesn't seem to matter. As we've now kicked it into overdrive. Well, a tough game for Rogue to start. He got a good jump on the game as well. He had the economy. He recognized that ByuN was doing that need for greed style. But he didn't capitalize as hard as he could have. And the mutas getting cut out of the sky. I feel like he just cut them out of his mind. And that could happen. I think it happens more to pro players than to, like, Diamond to GM. Oh yeah, I have this tech building already. Because they're so good at their timings. They've done this so many times that there's a default game playing in their head that if they went off script at some point, may not be something they remember. It's actually most common, I think, with Protoss, where they do things like a proxy Dark Shrine or Stargate and then just forget it exists. Occasionally you get the fusion core for Terran, but it's quite a regular occurrence. And proving that these players are arguably human, just like I like to prove that I'm human and not some sort of construct by forgetting how to speak, though I don't know if that helps or hurts. Hurts me, or does it? Like and subscribe for Existential Dread. Reapers. ByuN back to the classics. The unit that he got nerfed not once, not twice. Well, twice technically. And he wasn't directly referenced, but he was also the only player who was using Mass Reaper at the time of the nerfs. Between beating Dark to win the World Finals in 2016, and then dominating with GSL even after the Reaper got nerfed. So originally, the Reaper grenade did 10 damage on a 7-second cooldown. This was when the Reaper grenade was added with the Legacy of the Void. So, if you remember Legacy of the Void coming out, well, how's the back pain? But, and then, they reduced it to 5 damage. Because 10 damage, Zerglings have 35 HP for reference. So you can see why those grenades can be pretty devastating. But then ByuN just added more Reapers. So then they reduced the cooldown to 14 seconds. Or increased it. So double the cooldown with half the damage. And to this day, ByuN still goes Mass Reaper and makes it look good. But it's no longer quite as abusive as it once was. Remember, this was the time when Terran could fly around sieged up tanks as well. Good time. And Liberators had even more range with their upgrade. And they did they didn't have bonus damage to light. They just had flat damage to everything. So you could just kill corrupt. Now, all right, everything was crazy. Now, the counterpoint for Zerg, infested Terrans. The reason why Zerg had a chance in the late game, more than a chance, in fact, probably favored throughout, until they removed the infested Terran, I would argue, and I think most would, that Zerg, Rogue the one who won the World Championship in GSL in, I believe, 2017, and then said, yeah, Zerg's pretty imba. And then they removed the infested Terran, which endlessly abuses me that the most overpowered unit for Zerg was still Terran. Checkmate. Terrans. I know, but it was just a buffed up version. And the ability to spam and flood the field for effectively free was problematic. For sure. And we've still been chasing something that could replace it since then. And that's why that was, instead of having Scourge, Rip Overlord, or something from the Brood War, the infested Terran filled that late game Zerg anti-air role. It is a, not new, but not throughout all of SC2 has Zerg anti-air in the late game being lacking been a common phenomenon. Like, Infestors used to do a lot more damage with Fungal as well. But, as well as stunning. So a lot of the I'll hold you in place and kill you before you can respond kind of abilities have been watered down. I have Vortex, but also that's taken some of the tools away, obviously. So that there's this one Finnish guy who's still really good, no matter... Like, you're gonna hand him, like, a toothpick and a pack of bubble gum and one shoelace, and somehow he'll strangle the rest of the field while building himself a house for him and his family. And then all the other Zergs are wondering, why can't I just build Zerglings? Because you forgot adrenal glands, Rogue! Honestly, that was probably the biggest mistake beside that and the Ultra timing made... Yeah, this is how we're gonna play every time. These two are willing to play StarCraft the entire day, even if it's just one series. So they will play, no rush, effectively, 5 to 8 minutes, get their build, and fight. Which might be a little slow to start, but certainly ramps up. That means by the time they do fight, the economy is already so high, there will probably be more and more behind it. But Rogue, of course, knows the map is dark and full of Terrans. And look at that Overlord coverage. Queen's driving things away. Incredible Overlord coverage, as well as now getting the creep spread out there quite efficiently. ByuN, but where's the medevacs? Well, they're here. ByuN tucks himself into a corner, and Brenda, why is there no creep here, Susan? We didn't think he'd attack with Marines. That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. Sorry, I lagged out for... Ooh, Queen's gunned down one by one, but that's kind of their purpose at this stage of the game. They have a lot of purposes, but if you can lose 3 or 4 Queens, it's much better than losing a dozen drones or even a hatchery at this stage. But... What, Brenda? I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. I'm sorry. 60 Zerglings. Infestation pit on the way. Any other lair tech. No Hydralisk Den. No Spire. Straight to Hive. At least that seems to be the intent. Meanwhile, ByuN, with 1-1, now completed. Armory is completed as well, so we can start the 2-2 immediately. Rogue will actually have an upgrade advantage this time. At least to an extent. He's going to have +1, +2. Though, it looks like we're going to be trading off. It's not going to be super decisive. Big Zerg, well, sending in a few lings. Single siege tank on the high ground. Going to draw some not-so-friendly fire. Couple infestors on the way. Meanwhile, ByuN working down the center. Scan clears up some creep tumors, but the Zerglings overrun. And he saves a couple siege tanks. And the field runs red with the blood of both sides. Skirmish ending in a unclear result, but keeping ByuN busy while the queens move up and respread the creep. Banshee just zoning out any Zerglings that get too ambitious. But Rogue is on a solid 4 bases now. Surprised he hasn't opted for that 5th base yet. ByuN starts 2-2, but Rogue is about to be completed with his hive. That is an obscenely quick hive, especially in the grand scheme of things here. Scan clears the center. 5th hatchery on the way. Are we gonna see microbial shot? Well, the infestor's out in front. Target fire, doesn't have the vision, gets on top, Fungal comes out. And Rogue gonna overrun the tanks. Pick up a few Marines, but yeah, he's still fighting as they come out of the medevacs. ByuN underestimating the Zerglings. Eventually outflanks them. And an Ultralisk cavern is once again on the way, but he's gonna shore up those mistakes of the past. Adrenal glands is in production. +1/2 is gonna be completed. Baneling nest added on. So Rogue, through all the fire and fury, has been able to survive the initial commitments. And okay, that's kind of crazy though. He did all this with 60. I'm like, look at that economy. It's bad, was the follow-up. He had 60 drones to get here. He sprinted up the tech tree and left his economy a little behind. So he's relying on having the right unit composition instead of having more units and trying to overwhelm ByuN, which is certainly a different way to go than we saw last game. That's not going to work. That is not enough Zerglings. That's not even remotely close. The other side, one more, and it dies with all hands. But Rogue, leaving some gaps in the armor here, somewhat literally, with chitinous plating and +3 on the way. The Ultras will begin. The Queens outflanked by the mines, and they will be obliterated. The Zerglings getting gunned down one by one, trickling in when he needs a flood. And ByuN with another incredibly efficient fight. 212 Zerglings have died, but not a single point of gas has been spent by Rogue. It's all gone into building up the tech. And so far, the damage, it's but a flesh wound. Zerglings and Queens sacrificed so Ultras and upgrades can complete. There are 10 Queens and a couple Infestors. It's certainly one way of going about things. The Zerglings are counterattacking. Rogue's just going to give up this base. Potentially a Hero-Lisk on the field. The Infestors wandering into the fray. No! But the Zerglings on top of the 4th base. The planetary fortress. Oh no, Rogue losing his grip yet again. The drones got away from the base to the north. ByuN pulls back from the right side after killing the hatch and a whole bunch of infestors. And Rogue, the tree stands too tall. The tech tree, that is. And it seems like it doesn't have a strong enough foundation. As right now, ByuN is finding a whole bunch of weaknesses and it's starting to topple. But chitinous plating is done. In the Hero-Lisk. Is that the only? There are 3 Ultralisks now. And he's entirely reliant on them to turn this game around. The only saving grace is yet again, ByuN is a conscientious objector to ghosts in general. So rarely does he go ghosts until it's either too late or it's literally so late in the game he has no choice. Now, those are kind of 2 sides of the same coin, but we'll see which one it ends up being. Oh no, the Widow Mines. Oh. It's bad, but it could be worse. Another army, but this time 4 Ultras in place to meet him. +3 Carapace is done. The Ultras have an armor advantage. Maybe not good enough in this position. The Queen's ambling back as well. Big Zergling counterattack siege tank helping out. It has 30 kills. Those are just, it doesn't count friendly fire. It probably has double that. Ultra popped on the right. But the Zergling counter finding some success. Rogue just kind of hitting random things. Meanwhile, another couple Marauders snuck their way into the 12 o'clock base. The Queens are brawled it out with the Bio army on the right side, which is taking mostly emotional damage from the unupgraded attacks of the Queens. Fungals come through, Zerglings clean it up. But ByuN is maxed out. While Rogue is struggling at 160 supply, he starts a Spire, rebuilds the hatchery, but Ultras are for battering down their front door, not trying to guard your own. They are not the most finesse-oriented creatures. And right now, Rogue is trying to use them as a shield, which is, well, that's giving ByuN the initiative. He has no choice, because he has to defend against the drops, and if he counterattacks, he doesn't have enough back at home. But he's gonna try anyways. A few Ultras, but the Liberators, a Venn diagram of freedom, would be absolutely devastating. The Widow Mines, almost as much so. CG got multiple bases. The counterattack just barrels through the front base for ByuN. Meanwhile, the Marines back at home, the Ultras queuing up in order to slaughter them, and the Queens barely holding together the anti-air. The Ultras slip into the mineral line. The 43-kill siege tank finding a challenge it's not nearly as qualified to deal with as another Ultra just slicing its way through with reckless abandon. And it appears ByuN has abandoned the attack in order to cover the defense. And Rogue's admittedly haphazard counterattack ends up being exactly what he needed to stabilize the game. He slaughters a couple dozen SCVs, he knocks out a base, and he resets the momentum. And Rogue has rebuilt bases 5 and 6. He's up to 80 drones and counting, which might actually be pushing it a little bit. But he's pushed back against the Terrans. He needs that Spire to be remembered, though. He finished a Spire. This time around, it isn't his second one, it's his first, but Corruptors against these Liberators. There's only a half dozen, but the Queen count, he's lost 7 Queens, he still has 6 of them. CG up multiple bases. The Ultras in an awkward position, but there's an Infestor in place to deal with this. He throws it out, the Fungal holds it down. The Widow Mines in place will be obliterated. The Liberators racking up dozens of kills, mostly on Larva. The Queen's coming back, the home defense team, and ByuN picks up and gets out with some of the survivors. The dregs of Bio that went through the engagement, but Rogue again, his economy interrupted. He lost a hatchery. Liberators back home to defend. The Banelings rolling through, Planetary trying to target, but it's a futile endeavor. The Ultra's on top of the base. He comes back for the Planetary. It will cost him 3 Ultralisks. It will cost him all the Lings and Banes. And I think very well that might cost him the game. Oh no. He double dipped. And he dug too deep and too greedily. Rogue had been clawing it back, barely patching together a defense throughout the last 8 minutes of the game. But now, the patch was ripped open, and ByuN takes another 2 games to 0. It was greedy, but a symptom of the times. He tried to rush to Ultras with nothing. Like, ByuN's specialty is the most generic yet effective unit composition. Marines, Marauders, and Medevacs. Occasionally will scatter in some mines. Sometimes we'll get Liberators. And notice, if you didn't notice, he had a Ghost Academy in production at the end of the game there. Like, oh yeah, Ghosts. Okay, Ghosts. One of those. But he kind of played into exactly what ByuN wants to do by lacking an anti-air like that. He tried to make the Queens the anti-air, which is asking a lot at that stage of the game. It was quite amusing to watch the knitting needles bounce off the armor of the Marines and Marauders. I think doing near minimum damage because he didn't have any ranged attack upgrades, which means the Queens really are just there to be a very fancy distraction. Well, the winter madness continues in game number 3. ByuN, so far, 2 late games, 2 similar outcomes. A bit concerning for Rogue that, well, I think game 1, he had an advantage. Not a decisive one, but he had an advantage, and it didn't come together. Game 2, I don't know if he ever had a real edge to cut through. He wasn't far behind, but Ultras are not a good comeback unit. Alright, there's no Kim Kardashian here, so we'll see. Rogue, I'm sure, has some tricks up his sleeve. Now, the question is, does he care enough to pull them out? Because it is not unlike... We saw these two at SC Evo. I think it was Rogue playing SC Evo in the Enki Epic series, where he does... Shout out to Enki, by the way. Enki TV. You speak Spanish. Hablo españols. Then you should check him out. You probably already have. As I think the most popular Spanish caster. But putting on these show matches. And tournaments as well. And sending them out. Appreciate it. Gracias. Enki TV, by the way. I might not have been enunciating well, but that's just, you know, every day. The Reaper does not fear the Zerglings, no matter how cute they are. It's ByuN's Reaper. He's never feared it. Dancing around so the queen can come shoo it away. I think it's Hydra time. There's a reason that Hydra... I do think Rogue, especially in anything but the highest profile tournaments, I think he'll try different things. Like the straight up to Hive, the... And there's, of course, the metagame between ByuN and Rogue as they play each other. Have played each other probably hundreds, maybe thousands of times in professional matches throughout the history of StarCraft, too. I do think the Hydra-Link Bane composition is the most reliable. The threat of lurkers in the late game is very important, especially against ByuN, who is unlikely to get ghosts out until he has already needed them for several minutes. So we'll see if Rogue can come up with something that is less Lisk-oriented, but so far, not so much. And ByuN, hell bad timing? Stim starts incredibly early. He's just skipping the starport and the Overlord. Ooh. No, yeah, he's going bio again. It's been a lot today, Overlord. All right, you've been making a lot of weird noises, looking off screen. I'm just saying. Yeah, I know that's pretty meta. But what are we going to do for the first 5 minutes? We'll be undecided. Okay, come on. Do you stay or do you go? All right. ByuN's like, I could, but I won't, but I could. And he actually does pull out at the last second. What a king. But I could. Gets another creep tumor. But still, not committing to the run by. We almost got a dramatic action in the first 5 minutes that wasn't in the production tab. Almost, and not quite. As ByuN declines to commit. And instead, we'll build up back at home. The double upgrades again. The double engineering bay at the very back of the natural. It's going to be mass Marines. Starports on the way. Couple more racks coming together. It's going to be a whole bunch of Marines. Maybe eventually some Marauders. Possibly some mines. And of course, probably most importantly, Medivacs. What does Rogue have for us? Very quick upgrades, but not as quick as ByuN. As both sides have decided to macro yet again. I can't complain. Honestly, watching these two struggle back and forth is a lot more entertaining than some of the more technical players. Both of them, I mean, they have over a decade of professional StarCraft 2. Going on 2. I think closer to 2 at this point for both of them. Barely, but... good old-fashioned macro game. And it is kind of old-fashioned, too. the way they're playing. Mutaling Bane versus Marine Medevac Mine. We just need a good old... Stop it. All right, gotta come up with some new... Somehow, despite watching the same games for 10 years, you're supposed to come up with new titles and ideas, Winter. You know how hard that is? Or you could just copy the same ones from 6 months ago and... Well, if it works, it works. Just like build orders. Well, we'll see if the fourth wall is the only one broken by the end of this, or if ByuN is able to push through and just win. This is an exploratory attack. I think no intention of actually doing real damage here, but just making sure that Rogue... Oh, wow, he's just burning right through. One of the medevacs taking a bruising, and ByuN losing his first couple units. They're gonna be the Hellions and Hellbats. The Marines, and one medevac taken down. But the Banelings don't have speed, which means off of creep, they're easy target practice. And even on creep, they're not that difficult either. So Rogue, again, no Hydra Den, no Spire. Okay, thank you. Stop listening. In the past to the future. Anyways. Moving on. Double drop to the left side. Still that single drop with a double drop of Marines left over to the right. Baneling speed on the way, and the Hydra Den nearly completed. A quick pick up and drop again. Just keeping the Zerglings on the runaround. Single Spore Crawler, but not quite in position to zone it out. The Queens are holding against the Marines, but it will cost them. Medevac, the Baneling stuck behind. Baneling speed still pretty far off. The Marines in the red. The Queens being cut down. And the drops will continue. Rogue is hatchery down the center at half HP. The Zerglings, 1-1 for both sides, which means the Zerglings are enough for now. Just put your Marines in, take your Marines out, put your Marines in, and boost them all about. You do the hokey pokey and you drop them all around. That's such annoying stuff. ByuN back and forth and back and forth. And now the main attack over to the right side. 4 Widowmons in front. Getting a little forward with them, but Prairie Dog Micro unburrows, reburrows, but it might be a little bit too late as the rest of the army is overrun. Drilling Claw's not quite done. 2-2 is about to complete. This is almost an anti-timing for ByuN. Unfortunately, though, for Rogue, the left side is under heavy attack, and the hatchery is nearly dead. Deep in the red, the Hydras, the Marines stimming their way forward. Stutter stepping, the Queens left behind, and Rogue is bleeding out. The Hydras have not been able to reach that critical mass they need, at least double digits, in order to drive back these drops. The Zerglings, one by one, getting gunned down, the Hydras as well. And just sending one after another into the fray. And somehow Rogue is maintaining a high enough supply. He has 78 drones. So quite a solid economy. But ByuN has 76 SCVs behind it. He's taken his 4th base. And it's just over. That's it. Terran through everything. ByuN. 3 in a row. And Mutas. Zerglings. Hydras. None of them standing up to ByuN's pressure. In fact, the Hydras were cut down most easily. And this is looking like a bit of a shorter series compared to the ones we've seen between these two in the past. But I don't think Rogue gets rattled. ByuN, fortunately or unfortunately, able to just stick with his core unit composition and find continued success. Where you go? Okay, it's just gonna be Reapers again, I see. All right. Thought I'd spare you the coughing my lungs out just a little bit. Still recovering from being sick. But not sick of these games. Alright. Like a sick hangover. Unfortunately, without the fun parts to induce it. Just all terrible, and then slightly less. 2 racks on the way. Maybe I'm just old. The back pain's fine for now. Ooh. Rogue. If we just get 5 games in a row of Rogue trying to macro up and ByuN cutting him down, I will not be surprised, but I will be disappointed. Though, only the 3rd game so far has been more one-sided than a Mobius strip, but it will be disappointing. So I really hope Rogue can pull it together just a bit. Historically, these two have been on a similar level, but I think... And ByuN has just been a solid Terran. Behind Clem and Maru throughout the last few years. In that order, very much, but... He's been doing the same thing really well for like 15 years now. With a few adjustments, but the core plan is almost identical. Like, you could look at the production tab and the unit composition, and wouldn't be surprised if this was 2014 or 2026. So, well, Queen's getting bounced around. It is a 3 per opener, nothing more drastic. Not even ByuN trying the Mass Reapers. At least not yet. Still has a couple out, well, 1 opportunity, potentially. Now, this map... Oh, whoa! 1 Reaper getting jammed into the corner, trying to take the Reaper entrance and the Zerglings. This map does have the add-ons on the outside, around the outside, but... Which means if Rogue was going to do some sort of aggression, this would be the time to do it. Of course. Of course. ByuN, I'm sure, is aware of that as well. Ooh, a lair already? A 2-base lair. Okay, Minecraft villager. I don't... Oh. No, stop. Stop. Oh, we're not too... Jimmy, edit that out. Jimmy! Okay. There's a Roach Warren on the... ByuN is going 3cc. Double engineering bay. With no starport. Rogue has a Roach Warren on the way. A battering ram Roach push would be dead. Should be deadly. This has to be something like, you don't go for a lair and a Roach Warren this early unless you've got some plans. There's the Roach speed. He does have an Evo on the way, but already Roaches in production. And still no starport for ByuN. Like, he's just now building it next to his factory. This is obscenely greedy. If Rogue can't punish him for this, he's gonna deserve the sweep, I think. Like, he can't keep getting away with it. This is the greediest build so far. Rogue is committed. He's getting +1 Carapace. He's got half a dozen Roaches on the field now. At the very least, he has to deny the 3rd with the Roaches. That is critical. He can't let ByuN have a comparable economy. Ooh, these SCVs on the wrong side. Finally figuring it out. The Roach count. Yeah, he's building more. He's already got 10. This is no longer a defensive amount of Roaches. This is unhappy. All right. I'm gonna direct its anger to the other side. ByuN still doesn't have more production. He doesn't have a tech lab on the factory. Just slapped it down. So, and Rogue is slipping around to the north side with no Banshee and no siege tank. There's a chance he hits before Stim is done. Either way, there's no Metavacs. Well, it just kind of ends. ByuN had nothing, and he dies for it. No scout. All Rogue had to do was attack. I feel like that's kind of been true, but maybe ByuN will at least have the respect to build a Banshee. So, in Game 2, he built a Banshee. In Game 3, I don't actually remember how that started, but he skips the starport, he skips the Banshee, and for once, Rogue is able to punish him for it. Now, is this a huge momentum shift in the entire series? And now everything changes? I have my doubts, but we'll see. That is, the least bloody win by far. Honestly, it wouldn't have been that surprising if ByuN noticed it slightly earlier for him to tap out without losing any units. But at least he's on the board. In the top left of Taito Citadel, finally putting a game on the board. We have Rogue. ByuN, well, we'll see. Does he acknowledge the activities in the previous match? Does he shore up his build, add that Banshee, maybe get more production before double engineering bay? That's usually what a safer build would consist of. Or does he just not command center first? Sure, why not? Now, command center first is not necessarily... Now, it's going to sound paradoxical a little, but stick with me. Command center first means you'll already have the command center done by the time any sort of super early aggression can come across. It's almost certainly going to pay off. It has just been a long while since Zergs have found reliable success with going for an attack this early. So the command center first will delay the Banshee, obviously, because you got a command center before the barracks. But at the same time, unless he gets a third command center before getting a starport, ByuN is potentially in a more defensible position than otherwise. But I think we both know. We all know. Those two know in the game as well. That ByuN's almost certainly going to get a third command center. He does have 2 racks behind this. We'll see. Which means the factory severely delayed. He does have gas at least, and a second one in production. He's not just going to go Reaper. Yeah, he's got a Marine on the way. Wouldn't put it past him, though. What? He canceled the Marine and now builds a reactor. You have to build units eventually. These Zerg, like, the Zerglings are going to come across before he has any units. This is how ByuN responds to getting all in. He's like, I'm just going to get even greedier. And, well, he keeps getting away with it for the most part, so... Rogue takes a third. Very standard so far. The Zerglings... What did we open up there? What the fuck, co-pilot? Fuck that. Alright, sorry. That was the wrong hotkey. Gimme! We're gonna get demonetized! Well, the Zerglings. At this point, the Overlord spotted the command center time. He knows that this was CC first. He can take his guesses what's behind it. Starport's on the way. We're macro in. Already setting up. A single Zergling will spot the... Just in case it wasn't clear, he's going to build a bunch of Marines with medevacs. It is now. That one Zergling slips in, spots more than like 2 Marines, which is all it takes to know. Because otherwise, you wouldn't be able to have that many Marines. Having half a dozen is very clear. In fact, no Hellions have come out. He's just skipped everything and straight to medevacs. Now, very important to note, there is no third command center. For once, I lied. I apologize, formally. Personally, never apologized. No shame. But the double medevac rushed out. It's going to be done. He's going to be across the map with 2 medevacs and 16 Stimmerants. This is a ByuN classic here. The 2-1-1. Hitting the field, dropping out, boots on the ground before the 5-minute mark. And just keeping the pressure on, which Rogue has crumbled to. 3 out of 4 games so far, and he didn't get an opportunity in the 4th. Already pre-boosting, slurping up the Marine. Hey, all right, close enough. We're waiting. But heading out. Another boost. The creep tumors will complete. Buying a couple extra seconds there. And the queens. Rogue was trying to take down the rocks down the center, which would be quite helpful, but unfortunately gets supply blocked by losing an Overlord. He has 6 in production, which is a bit overkill. But the Marines existing dictated the pace of the game. Rogue is at 53 drones. He's got 3 bases, adding on a Baneling nest and a lair. +1 Carapace is on the way, and very key is ByuN just now starting his +1 attack. So, Rogue will have the upgrade advantage. ByuN is locked in to this sort of unit composition. He's adding a 3rd Rax now. He needs to keep the pressure. Well, it depends on how much Rogue knows about his commitment. If he thinks there's a 3rd command center behind and he's building up to like a 2-2 timing, then Rogue will definitely get greedy. But it does not appear he thinks that. Instead, he's building mass Zergling. 51 on the field, another dozen in production, Baneling speed on the way. Just only Zerglings now. So he recognizes the magnitude of the commitment from ByuN. But still, does that mean he can stop it? A few Marines alongside the siege tanks, reinforcing with those dropped out of the medevacs. 10 Banelings on the way, and without Baneling speeding Carapace, this army is still very deadly. And even with Baneling speeding Carapace, it's deadly, but you have a better chance of closing the distance. He needs that +1 Carapace to engage. Combat shield's not quite done. Rogue. He's not going to get speed, but he will get Carapace done. Just finished. Zerglings from the back. A couple Zerglings on top of the siege tanks. Gets the wraparound. Gonna take out 1 tank. Target fire on the Banes, but a couple more closing in. Forced to pick up. Knocks the medevac with all hands out of the sky. And Rogue rips down the medevac, the tanks, and the supply. 30 supply lead for the Executioner. And ByuN, with his sort of outdated build here, is showing its age. The Queen's enough. And now how does Rogue capitalize? There is a 3rd command center for ByuN. Rogue only has 59 drones. He's going past the 60 mark. The quadruple drop, but the Queens... This is restricted lair space! Come back! Ah! Oh, nice score crawler placement for once. Why are you hurtful? Sorry. I'm blacked out for... ByuN kind of putting himself in an awkward spot. And Rogue has all the advantages now. Well, the only thing he doesn't have is reliable anti-air. He has creep spread all along the left side of the map. He's working on his 4th base before ByuN has even taken a 3rd. That siege tank on the low ground is carving out a decent amount of zone control. But the Queens have enough transfuse to fight the Marines themselves. A single Liberator sieging up is 1 Queen, another one coming down to deal with it. Trickling through. There's just not enough Marines to hold this ground. Liberator taken down, and Rogue is consolidating his position. The hive begins. ByuN, at this point, is peaking in the amount of production, as the main base is drying up. He has taken the third. So, he does have a lifeline economically. But Rogue is going to have the Hive. That's a huge counterattack. The door is shut. And the dead keep it. The door is shut. The third base is quite vulnerable, but he knows most of the army is out on the map, obviously. A single siege tank at the watchtower, how convenient. Giving itself enough vision to control that entire area. And Rogue didn't take down these rocks, so he's not going to be able to retreat in time. ByuN just tearing through the front, backing off, holds against the Banes. And ByuN is still a threat. The Zerglings from the back, the Banelings closing in, the tank taken down. But Rogue suffers heavy losses this time around. A fourth command center is slightly delayed by a single Zergling. What a hero. But Rogue loses drones. Oh no, another Liberator got 8 kills! Just jammed into the corner here, and the Queen can't find an angle to get it. Finally comes around, and ByuN has maintained too much momentum. There's a huge Baneling mine in potentially a great position, but I think he actually miscued it there. It needs to be... He doesn't want it to be scanned, is the problem. So, it's a bit of a dilemma. If you have the creep, then the scans are likely to follow. So you don't want the Baneling mine to be in position. The Viper comes out. ByuN spots it immediately. 2-1 upgrades for the Marines. +2 weapons and +1 armor against just +2 carapace for Rogue. There's still enough Zerglings. But I fear itself. As well as the efficiency of the Terran army. ByuN has managed to hold on to his third, and Rogue never capitalized on the map control. That siege tank in the center has 15 kills. Still hasn't been dealt with by the Zerglings. Because he doesn't know. So he knows there's a siege tank, but he can't know if there's a dozen Marines in there. That's why he's not just sending in a few Zerglings. Or maybe ByuN's just taxi him past the point he can handle it. A bit of both, maybe. The Marines dropping out, finally on location. Rogue! Rogue! He's trying to bait it. But instead, he'll just drive it back either way. Parasitic bomb on the medevacs. It doesn't stack. He'll quarantine both. Hydra was dead on the way. Fourth base finally being taken for ByuN. Rogue has managed to stabilize, but he's still down 10 workers. Pulls back. Siege tank supporting. The medevacs, a strong gust of wind would blow away, but the parasitic bombs will have to do for now. And ByuN maintains the supply, continuing the upgrades, has the production in Rogue. Again, has been dragged into the late game, and so far, struggling for it. Though, definitely not out of it yet. It doesn't get... Oh, he splits the Bane mine to either side. I wonder if he's intentionally not creep spreading, which is quite a dilemma. Ghosts are on the way. Though, ghosts are good, of course, but this is one of the few scenarios where maybe not critical. Ooh, Banelings rolling in, and a couple more medevacs. At least not the bruised one. That tank has 26 kills. And is still holding. Liberators sieging up. The Liberators there's no anti-air beside. Well, the Hydras are finally trickling out. Yanks the Liberator out of the way. Another drop. This one dealt with. Banelings roll through. The creep spread on the left side has gone mostly uncontested. ByuN queues up another siege. This time the Queens will angrily rip it down. And Rogue has stabilized somewhat, but unfortunately the reason is because ByuN took the pressure off. Not because he thought it was a good idea to just give up on the whole map control directive, but instead in order to get Ghosts. And as you switch into Ghosts, your Marine and Marauder production drops off. Finally, the siege tank, after 30 kills, draws out a blinding cloud. He retakes the watchtower. But we have to ask ourselves that question. Have you liked and subscribed? And at what cost? 5 CCs on the way for ByuN as he's building up the Iron Bank. But for the first time, we're going to see the extreme late game where both sides, we have Ghosts. Ooh, accidentally A-clicked his own medevac, but we have Ghosts, we're going to have Lurkers, and well, Rogue is putting together the Oversight Committee. The mass overseer roguelike style that no other Zerg seems to either be interested in or have success with. But the creator and the perpetuator There's a changeling at the watchtower. +1/+3 for the for the Lings and Banes. 3-2 going on 3-3 for the Marines. The siege tanks being built 3 at a time have +1 mech weapons. +2's to it, pretty far off. But ByuN has successfully kept the pressure on Rogue to the point where he's switched into Ghost Siege Tank Turtle with very little losses. But the blinding clouds are devastating, and he overruns the field. He'll just abandon this position entirely, but the Hydras are on the chase. More siege tanks, more blinding clouds. The Viper's out of energy, but another drop to the north, and he missed his shot at the Baneling mine. High-sec auto-tracking and building armor on the way to solidify ByuN's position, but overall, Rogue took quite a good fight. He needs a few more to take the war. The scan spots the army pulling back, but objective complete. He took out the base in the bottom left corner, though lost one to the north of his own. The Vipers will return back to drag out some more energy. But reinforcements down the center. ByuN has 11 siege tanks going on 14. Wow. A mass siege tank style that we've seen very little of. He said the watchtower siege tanks are actually, and there's a reason we haven't had a watchtower in the center of the map like this for quite a while. It's because there are a few units that are inordinately good with this extra vision, and the siege tanks are all of them. Especially considering there's only one angle you can really jam into it. The double drop to the north, and Rogue is going to have to break this quickly. It's not going to be clean. There's only 2 16 siege tanks. Wow, 17. And counting. +2 mech weapons is done. Blinding Cloud covers 1/3 of the tanks. There's maybe a couple more at the back. The Banelings are rolling through, but the siege tanks are cutting into them. The Hydra's working on it. The Banelings covering a lot, but nothing to deal with the double drop at the back. The base will take heavy fire. He drops back in order to defend, but he may lose the hatchery beforehand. The drones are being cut down, and ByuN targets the hatch and takes it out. ByuN, though, losing a lot on the field. He lost 21 siege tanks so far. Only 3 Marauders. What an odd situation where siege tanks have a shorter life expectancy than Marauders. But lunges forward. ByuN already used his boost. Hilarious EMP at the last second in order to wipe out the energy of the Overseers. But still, mass siege tank is the order of the day. Rogue, though, adding more Wait, did he add more Vipers in? No, he's just taking very good care of them, which is very important at this stage, though remarkably rare. ByuN, unable to refill his supply nearly as reliably as Rogue. But the triple prong is still finding some success. The Ghosts line up some shots, but there's no really strong targets besides the Vipers. Those siege tanks at the watchtower still finding a lot of success. And Rogue bleeding out units on the front lines. Only has 10 Banelings, making 32 more Lings. The army supplies are about even. Where are the Vipers? The front line is falling. Where are the Vipers? The Zerglings are trickling in. Where are the Vipers? And engaging at the watchtower, and we still ask, where are the Vipers? Finally joining the fight. As both sides thinning out dramatically. But that favors the Terrans! And it looked like Rogue had regained the momentum. But the Vipers needed a little more energy. But perfect was the enemy of the good. It feels like Rogue just fell apart. A minute ago, Rogue, well, so we'll go to the Rogue cam. Rogue trying to set up against the bases. Doesn't know the siege tank line runs so deep. That's the problem. You can't know how many siege tanks. You can suspect. But he goes forward. How many could it be? There's more, and more, and more. And by the time he deals with it, still maybe tapping out a little early, but ByuN has money in the bank. He's building 12 Marines and 3 tanks at a time. A cinematic sort of style. And I'm not even sure ByuN expected it to work, but he committed to it. And now he's on match point. A rough one. Indeed. An entertaining set of games. It just seems like the pendulum keeps swinging towards ByuN past a certain point. That one, right up until the last fight, it looked like Rogue was... Oh, ByuN. Is this an NG Bay block? Or is it a proxy red? Disgusting. It's like, I'm done here. Let's wrap it up. This is the most Korean Terran thing. Maru and ByuN. Infamous for these sort of strategies. And by that I mean just a casual bunker rush. He's gone this entire time. Command center first. Rogue spots the barracks immediately. He pulls back, and there's a very good chance the Overlord wasn't spotted. He's gonna pull the drones to deal with the barracks. Okay, well, so he has the barracks right next to each other, which means there's a chance that they actually finish with enough of the SCVs, but the drones are pulled off the line. And, well... Abandon ship! It's not... It command center first. Why not? He has the money. He, wholly abandons his first plan and will go back to the original one. ByuN barracks blundering. Bunker build. Bemoaned by... best boys, but boys be berated. Like and subscribe. I'm not a rapper, but and broken. Rogue takes a third hatch, knowing there will literally be no units for ByuN. Where do we go from here? So, did it cost Rogue enough to justify... there's only so many choices. ByuN in a pretty narrow sort of options. But Rogue did commit a lot. He pulled over half of his drones off the line for the better part of a minute to make sure those barracks did not complete. So it's not like he's just far and away ahead. But make no mistake. Maybe head and shoulders at least. ByuN just playing it out. He's got the Reaper only a minute later than it usually is. There will already be a queen out, of course. Zergling speed is on the way, but Rogue maxing that drone count. Well, ByuN, 3 racks. So, it's still a 3 racks, it's just with some extra steps. The Reaper mostly to scout if he's about to immediately die to roaches, but on seeing the 3rd hatchery completed, it becomes less likely that's the case. Not impossible, but less likely. The Broverlord sneaking in. And we'll see barracks number 2. And, well, he doesn't need to see more, but it'd be nice to know about barracks number 3 as well. Unfortunately, not quite close enough. Double engineering bay? Are you kidding me right now? Well, he's not going to be taking his natural for a while. Abandon your posts. Flee for your lives. Yet again, as ByuN saw the Zerglings coming across. And he's going to play one base for a while. Alright. Well, here we are. As Rogue squatting at the natural. Is he actually going to... Wow. ByuN not going to take this lion down. He's going to come down the ramp with the boys. I think that's enough lings, but he has to decide now before more Marines come out. Yeah. I think he can do it. The boys. Some pretty slick micro here from ByuN to minimize it, but he's losing Marines. Oh, wow. He didn't lose a single SC. That's disgusting. On paper, if this was a unit tester battle and they were A-moved against each other, the Zerglings easily win. But ByuN knows all the filthy tricks. Using the mineral walk of the SCV to constantly kind of jostle the Zerglings without being automatically targeted. And minimize the damage to the Marines while still keeping the SCVs alive. And that is part of why you don't usually go for huge Zergling commitments early on. There are so many ways, and players have gotten so good at just using every little angle to deny them. Of course, Rogue is still in a perfectly fine position. He wasn't all in, by any means. Remember, he shut down the barracks before they started. ByuN is still a long way off parity here. As the Don't say anything, Susan. I didn't say anything. I saw you looking at me. No, those are just my eyes. They're weird. They're not weird, Susan. They're mutated. That sounds worse. It is. Sorry. Lair? Are we back to the Mutas? Burrow? Why not? I mean, he has the money. Infestation pit. Rogue going to risk jumping up the tech tree yet again. Though this is the greatest jump he's had. So he should be able to get to Hive and have enough Lings and Banes to pretty easily defend. Though ByuN is doing probably the highest percentage play, which is just pretending nothing went wrong. You have to just act like you have enough to deal with all this. And even if you don't, you have to act like it. And because there's a chance that with one bad fight, you can regain some semblance of momentum. But even though we haven't seen a fight, both players know Rogue is very much in the lead. But ByuN just building up. He's going to try to find that timing when maybe Rogue got a little greedy and take advantage of it. The Marines heading out. The first medevacs several minutes later than we've seen in any game so far, but as soon as possible still. The 12 o'clock base could be targeted, maybe taken out. Good stutter step. Actually going to get greedy. Go for the drones as well, but the transfuses. And Rogue! Oh, what a save indeed. The transfuses pulling it back together as the Marines thought they could get a few drones and have a hatch too. But not today. Or at least not yet. And the fungal holding down the medevacs. And finally, the ultimate death. The Queens get their revenge. After so many games being run around by the medevacs. Very satisfying to be able to take them out so decisively. And now Rogue, 50 supply. Probably the biggest supply lead he's had in the series. Even including that Roach win. So... well, we'll see. Aspire's on the way. The Hive is done. He's getting a little bit of everything. Ultralisk Cavern. And this is exactly the timing for the Ultralisk Cavern. The battering ram to just roll over ByuN before he even has 200 supply, let alone what he needs to deal with it. Already Marauders being added in. Widow Mines with Drilling Claws. 2-2 is done for ByuN. He's going to have the upgrades. But Rogue has... he kept his 5th base alive. He didn't even need that base, but he certainly wanted it. Medevac still trading for Zerglings quite well. But Rogue has yet to forget Adrenal Glands again, which was such a critical mistake earlier. Ooh, a bloody fight. absolutely devastating for both sides. Rogue suffering very heavy losses, losing dozens upon dozens of Zerglings. But he can replace them. ByuN actually has 1,500 minerals in the bank right now, which, a bit of a mistake, and oh no, he thought he could get away, but the infestors came in. He actually loses the only one of the only medevacs with units in it. The reinforcements are cut off. The start of the fight was incredible, but Rogue has reinforcements flooding the field, and ByuN is drowning in them right now. There's Zerglings burrowed throughout for constant scouting. I honestly like that a lot more than Banelings, because Banelings are usually in key locations and will be scanned. But the Zerglings, they don't provide much. They provide enough vision to know where to send your units well before they need to get there. The Ultras, no chitinous plating, but Marines are only going to be able to tap on the armor. Just dancing with the Ultra and the medevacs. Rogue is... it's all coming together. A counterattack, the wall off, will keep the Zerglings at bay for a while. More command centers on the way, very optimistically. ByuN spending that extra money on command centers, which, you know, I guess if you have it. But the Widowmines being dragged out into the bio. The Zerglings withstanding them. Raises the command center. Still a medevac at the very back. Some changelings scattered in. A wave of banelings, plus 2-3 upgrades for Rogue coming together. But the burrowed Zerglings are so key. That map is dark and full of Terrans, and Rogue is lighting it up as best he can. They will not be scouted. There's no way he's going to scan for these. In fact, the fact he didn't go for Baneling Mines. Maybe at some point when burrowed infestors become a threat, he'll accidentally spot him, but it's such a big deal now. That vision is critical. Rogue with 4 Ultras, 4 infestors, 60 Zerglings, 40 Banelings. He's got the army now. The Chew Toy Depot is taken down. The Bio Army on the chase. A scan will accidentally spot the burrowed Ling and may set him off looking for him. Somehow the drop gets into the main where the Queens, well, have no attack upgrades, and it's very obvious, isn't it? Yikes. Oh no, that could be problematic in the main, but even more problematic for ByuN. As the army is caught, the Widowmines are dragged in, the Ultras cleave through, and he's forced to... this is still happening. The Marines with plot armor right now are gutting down the Queens. Eventually, the Queens, with their knitting needles, will get rid of them, doing minimum damage per hit. But what a brawl in the main base. Unfortunately for ByuN, he lost all momentum on the field. Ultras on the right. Medevac slow to pick up. Stutter stepping back. Base denied on the left side. And Rogue running over the field. Has to be a little careful not to lose a critical mass here, but he has the supply. He has the resources in the bank. He has his entire side of the map mining. And he has 84 drones to back it up. Now is the time to strike. And the Zerglings overrunning the third. The Ultras fighting at the fourth. A drop will return fire on the right side, but ByuN dips 50 supply and plummeting rapidly. Another Venn diagram of freedom will light up the Ultralisk, but too little and too late. More SCVs cloven in twain. The Ultras eviscerating the economy. The Liberators pin-cushioning what they can, but they can't fire fast enough. Rogue at 200 supply. Though losing a couple more Ultras would be painful. ByuN. Be underwater. It's too much. I don't think Rogue can throw this one anymore. The Zerglings denying a base. ByuN has lost a similar amount of units, or a similar amount of resources, which is never a good sign in this sort of scenario. The mules will drop and give ByuN the income lead very temporarily. Spore Queller does some damage. Corruptors being added in, finally, for some much more direct anti-air. The Ultras cleaving through. The Corruptors will wipe out the sky. And GG! Rogue strikes back, up against the wall. Refuses to go quietly into the night. As ByuN tried a proxy racks and got shut down about as hard as you possibly could. And now, We got at least one more game on our hands. Well. It took about the most dramatic lead you could get for Rogue to carry it through. But he did. He came through. And ByuN? I'm surprised we didn't see the SCVs sent out again. No, that's a depot. Yeah. 10,000 feet. Tarantino's dream will be our another match point. This map is tough in the late game for Zerg, but in the mid to late game, when you don't have a reliable 200 supply, but you do have Hive Tech in Tier 3, that's when Zerg can really shine. You can go around. It's difficult to have your army partition between the left and right sides of the map very efficiently, whereas Zerg is pretty fast. That's their whole thing. That's why they got a speed upgrade for every single unit, and Creep itself is a speed upgrade, so... Command center first. Of course. ByuN? I thought that was a command center for a second. No racks on. It's just a racks on the way. Overlord make its way across. Past the Zerg rocks. It's kind of unclear where Rogue's going wrong as well. He's tried almost every style. Maybe committing to one and doubling down on it. It's been the Ultras more often than not. I think we saw Lurker Den once, but no Lurkers were made. Lurkers can be very good against this composition. Like, at double-digit Lurkers, you need Ghosts. Or at least an overwhelming amount of Liberators. But he hasn't been able to get there. Like, you could build all these things. I see all the comments about the theory crafting of how to win against certain compositions. But things cost money. Which is why you should like and subscribe, so I can continue to yell at video games. But, yes, I know this is going to come as a shock. Economics 420, but you can't simply, and we saw what happened when Rogue tried to rush up to Hive. No, I would say rushing up to Ultras is asking for disaster more often than not. Ultras are not a finesse-oriented unit. If they're able to sidestep or lead the Ultras away before the first big hit, then you don't have nearly the momentum or the potential of things like Lurkers, or even better, Broodlords. But Broodlords are much more of a reach, which is why they're so good, but... Already working on the mineral wall with a whole bunch of patches over there. Rogue not actually microing it. Just slowly working through. So, not that interested early. Maybe back to the Roach Warrant. Again. What's kind of crazy, we haven't seen a single... We saw Hellion Banshee, but not Hellion Cloak Banshee. We haven't had a single game of what I would call the standard cookie-cutter Terran versus Zerg. But I've talked about it before. In fact, I think I talked about it recently, is how Protoss versus Zerg almost always starts almost exactly the same, and then kind of splits in how it ends up. Whereas Terran versus Zerg starts in a bunch of different ways, and then ends up with very similar unit compositions, especially for Terran. Like, Terran might go for Reaper early, or Hellion Banshee, or just Stim Medevac, but you're gonna end up with the Marines, the Marauders, and the Medevacs. Maybe it's mines, maybe it's tanks, but that core army composition has and always has been there. So, it is a reprise of the exact build that Rogue did on Tourmaline. It's gonna be the mass roaches with speed. This time around, ByuN didn't go for Reapers. he went straight for the medevacs, which is going to give him a lot more options to deal with this. But if the first medevac gets shut down, there's a very good chance the counterattack will end the game on its own. So, we will see. The Marines just walking out and trusting the medevacs to catch up. And indeed they are. There's no roach speed on the way, which is a mistake out of roach. You need roach speed as soon as possible, even if you have a few less roaches. He starts it now. Working on the creep over here. There's enough roaches to deal with this. Rogue has 51 drones, which is workable. The drop heads straight towards the main. There's already some spore crawlers coming up. In fact, repositioning, maybe a bit optimistically mid-fight, missing out on an opportunity for some extra damage. The roaches, he's just going to move it back a bit embarrassingly. ByuN is still on 2 bases throughout all this. Zergling speed on the way. He actually skipped Ling speed to get here quickly. No +1 carapace for Rogue either. The Marines are numerous enough to target down the roaches, and ByuN knows that. Jams himself into the corner, finds a good spot, and another downside is the lack of queens. So when you go for roaches, usually you rely on the roaches as opposed to the queens early on for as much defense. And now he's hurting in ways to take down the medevacs. ByuN just dropping in and out yet again. DJ ByuN. Dropping the base. Infestation pit already on the way. Skipping upgrades entirely. Which is a bold move. We'll see if it works out for him. ByuN, does Rogue see that third command center? Not quite. It's just barely out of vision. I don't even know how intentional that is. But if he saw it, he'd know exactly what he's dealing with. But right now, he's not sure of the level of commitment. He knows it's high enough that he just needs to keep making roaches. Rogue went up to 68 drones, which is possibly too many. +1 is done for the Marines. The drones are pulled off the line. That's how desperate it is. And it's not enough. ByuN tearing through the rest of the Zerg. And claiming the final game. ByuN 5, Rogue 2. And welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with our first post-credits anti-spoiler game, as Jimmy forgot to include this game in the replay pack. I believe it was Game 5 when the series was pretty much tied up as we spawn in on Mothership. So, the same series, just making sure we get all the games covered, which is certainly a way to do it. And you can voice your complaints with the YouTube comments and just scream into the void or something. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get a little bit better. Again, like and subscribe. Roach Warren is on the way on Mothership, our only free-player map, but it's always good to have one, and always has some shenanigans, at least for the majority of players, as most players have been playing on 2-player maps for 97% of StarCraft 2. I don't think the layout of most 3-player maps induces a completely different style, but it does slightly increase the likelihood of getting away with some cheese, as 8 roaches are currently in production, and ByuN is on the wrong side of the map to protect his add-ons. And of course, it's not 1, not 2, but 3 barracks to start things off, with the command center finished behind. The early 2 rags pressure into mass Marine Marauder, because of course it is. So, yeah, we couldn't add it at the end because it would make the rest of the casting awkward. Okay, so it has to be this. It'd be very weird to just edit it in. Like, you can edit it all. Sorry. Roaches on the way across, and the Reapers actually came back. So he hasn't seen the roaches at all. He's hunting the Overlord with the Marines, of which there's a surprisingly high number. But the roaches are about to be knocking on the door, and he's not even behind the wall to answer. In fact, it looks like ByuN wants to move out to hit a stim timing. The roach is moving in to make sure that doesn't happen. Though, a couple grenades will bounce them around and mitigate some of the damage. The roach count is thinning out pretty dramatically. More Ravagers coming up, wasting a little bit of time dealing with the tech lab. The boys are pulled off the line. Just as the tide seems to be turning, the boys are pulled onto the front line to make sure it holds. A bunker in production, and it looks like ByuN has enough to break this push. And behind it already, Rogue is going for more drones. If he had doubled down, maybe it'd pay dividends, but he cuts his losses. And, well, ByuN doesn't have a third command center. He's just gonna get an engineering base, because of course he is. Factory just now on the way. Rogue did commit a lot of potential economy to going for the aggression instead. In fact, canceling some of his gas geysers, so we'll see what he angles towards. He committed a lot of his potential economy, but I think it paid off. He has a third hatch on the way, killed 4 SCVs. And ByuN's build was a Marine timing. I know, shock and awe, but without the critical mass of Marines and Marauders, there's no way for him to move out without potentially risking everything. So just kind of sharky around. And he gets a single Marine across the map, and it's going to spot the third hatch. That is a huge deal. Honestly, the Zergling should have been in position to box it out, but spotting the third hatchery timing and the fact it isn't finished, but it's almost there, lets him know that Rogue did not have a follow-up. He went for the third pretty much as he was doing the first attack, and he's unlikely to be under an existential threat back at home, but there's still the risk. There's already a starport on the way, +1 attack in production. Rogue has a tentative lead, but Marines and Marauders have done. He actually scans the natural, which is a bit of a giveaway, though. The lair starts in the main. He's going to see the Evo chamber upgrading in only 1 gas, which means no fast Muta, probably not a Nidus, just a more conventional ground-based army. We'll see if that's good enough to deal with the first push. The Overlord will spot it. He has to assume that's the case. There are 30 Zerglings and 6 Queens against 20 Marines and 4 Marauders. No upgrades either way. For either side, rather. Stim, Combat Shield, and Concussive Shells all completed. He steps a toe on the creep and decides he doesn't like the taste. And don't question that sentence at all, because it just gets weirder if you do. Lair almost completed. Baneling Nest on the way, +1 Carapace. Rogue thinking about a huge counterattack, which would leave him with almost nothing back at home to defend. Looking to cut off the reinforcements. And right now, Rogue looking to stop the third base mineral line, but there is no third base to speak of. There's one on the high ground halfway done, but he can't know that. So the Zerglings are going to take the scenic route all the way around, while ByuN steps forward with a well-timed attack. +1 attack is completed. +1 Carapace isn't there yet for Rogue. The Queens have to hold the line. The Zerglings will get thinned out dramatically. And the Queen's going to be gunned down in turn. The Zerglings finally make it back home to defend. Wraps around the corner. Queen's target the medevac. Down it goes. And another wrap around means many of the Marines and Marauders will be taken out. The medevac nearly taken down itself. And ByuN turns what was a tentative victory into a pretty crushing defeat. He overstayed his welcome, and he wasn't welcome at all. It's not hard to do. Surprising he didn't pull out as quickly as he could have, but, you know, everyone's been guilty of that on occasion. Infestation Pit, Baneling Speed on the way. Infestation Pit no longer on the way, and a Hydralisk Den is the choice. As Rogue thinking maybe reaching for Hive Tech is a bit optimistic, and Hydra's a bit more realistic. It's not settling, it's pragmatism. It's different. But 1-1 on the way for the Zerg. Well, sorry, he has +1 Carapace. So +1 melee attack and +2 Carapace on the way. As ByuN working on +1 armor. And the Lings and Banes. Now close it in. The Marauders. I zoned out for a second. I said Marauders, and then a couple seconds later, I forgot what was happening. Just like Zerglings, when Marines pick up into a medevac and it flies away. It's like, oh, where'd it go? You have to direct them back. You'd think they'd figure it out, but no. Peanut brains. Which is relatively big, dude. Actually, Zerglings are like 6 feet tall. Horrifying. Meanwhile, the counterattack splits off a lane to mitigate exactly that. The Zerg. ByuN building a wall to keep the Zerg out. He knows they're not sending their best, but whoa, the Marines and Marauders might actually hard wall off against the Lings, which is quite a play. And ByuN not moving at all on the map while this is happening. Dealing with this counterattack. The Zerglings get into the natural as well. But the real win here for Rogue is the fact that ByuN is doing nothing else while this is happening. That gives Rogue enough time to put together the Banelings, get a little bit closer to the upgrades he needs to potentially crush this army. The supplies are nearly even, though. The medevacs, again, the Lings are able to get the wrapper on. The Banelings are closing in, forced to pick up, loses one medevac, a bunch of Marines, pulls back. There's still a drop in the corner. Another Overlord will be taken out. That almost loses the medevac in turn. And ByuN. Still, healthy supply, but a tentative position, as Rogue has 4 bases, about to finish his upgrades. ByuN a little bit late on the 2-2 in the grand scheme of things. I think the Roaches did a lot to delay, even if the supply is solid for ByuN. He picks up 3 medevacs at the worst possible time. And the Marines and Marauders are abandoned with no medevacs above. Will be surrounded and slaughtered. The medevacs are coming back. Select all army hotkey for sure. Oh no, it's a disaster. Oh, the humanity. And it all goes down. GG. And Rogue strikes back, which would have been much more dramatic if it was Game 5 of the series, as opposed to the very end after everybody knows the conclusion, Jimmy. But we work with what we have. Please like and subscribe so I can get some real help, mental or physical. But we'll do the outro again. Thank you for watching. If you got the means of motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon. Thank you again to Enki. Enki TV. E-N-K-I. I don't know if I spelled it before. You can... For another set of incredible matches. And I hope you enjoyed. But liking and subscribing is still free for now. Thank you for watching. Check out this video that Jimmy picked out, though I have no trust in that at this point. Otherwise, good luck, have fun. I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.